Dear friends, the theme that I wanted to develop during today's day long is equanimity, knowing how to calm the mind and knowing how to make the mind invulnerable to being disturbed by the worldly states, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, fame and infamy, and so forth like that. And I suggested at this early morning chanting, just after the morning chanting, I suggested a theme for meditation based on taking up one or two images. One is the image of making the mind as stabilized like a mountain. Something so vast and so solid that many kinds of disturbances can happen. The rain, the wind, the ice, the snow can happen, and the mountain is able to remain unmoved and stabilized. This is something like if one has a mind state which has got a point of view based in the narrow self concept, then the small self is so small. It's very easy for that small self to be shaken up and to be disturbed. But then if one can develop a boundless meditation, such as the boundless loving kindness meditation, or the elements meditation, is the same thing. You are softening, relinquishing, and eventually abandoning that viewpoint, which is based in the small self, and taking on a state of mind that is holding for all beings, or for anything in the world. The inside and the outside is the same. There's not any boundary, not any distinction. And so when the mind becomes boundless in that way, then it's also stabilized, because what could be large enough or strong enough to disturb something that was boundless and large. So then this meditation on the mountain element is, compared to us, a mountain is, like a completely different scale of existence. And then the other image that I suggested this morning is the image of space, which cannot be dirty or stained because nothing will stick to it. And this is, I would say, something that for a beginner, it might be not that easy to make that image really meaningful, because we do experiences that we are easily touched, and that things do touch us and they do affect us. So that boundless meditation, that mountain meditation, is a sort of a transition. And then that space meditation, having a mind which actually is not able to be disturbed, having a heart which is not able to be disturbed because it doesn't pick up any marks or any stain. That would be somebody who's really accomplished something in their practice. I thought I would start today by throwing us in the deep end and sharing something that was given by Sariputta. It's called the Siyananda, or the Lion's Roar. This is Venerable Sariputta's Lion's Roar of what qualities he has, which are the qualities of a fully enlightened arhat. And I want you to think of these states are not completely beyond what you can understand or what you can aspire to, but something that you can contemplate, reflect on, and at moments in your practice, you can experience something like this. And when you have experiences that are like this, then you can be confident that you're on the right track, moving towards the state that's so noble and so really inspiring as Sariputta's state. So the story is that a monk accused Sariputta of having insulted him and not apologized. And I made this complaint to the Buddha, and so then the Buddha called him. And so to be accused by one's colleague, that would be certainly just the type of thing that could happen within a monastic community and could cause the strains of irritability to happen, and could cause even a monastic community to become kind of degraded and falling into petty squabbles. But Siyananda gave this talk or made these statements about himself in response to that accusation. He said, suppose that people tossed both clean and unclean things on the earth, like feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. The earth isn't horrified, repelled, and disgusted because of this. In the same way, I live with a heart like the earth, abundant, expansive, limitless, free from enmity and ill will. One thing this is pointing out is that somebody who is fully enlightened arhat, while they're still alive, they have got feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood right inside their own body. And they also are living in society, and they encounter all kinds of people who are saying and doing all kinds of things. And so then they will be aware of both the suffering of the world and also aware of the evil and skillful things that are going on in the world. But rather than having that reaction to the worldly states of being horrified, repelled, and disgusted, instead, he lives in this expanded mind state, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. You will recognize that as the refrain that we hear about the Brahma Viharas, when one has no enmity, no ill will, nothing but the thought of kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity towards the entire world, including oneself and including any beings outside without any distinction, inside, outside, just the same. This state of meditation is one of the descriptions of samadhi, or concentrated meditation, deep meditation. One can practice like that within the sama samadhi, or the practice of jhana, or one can develop that practice in something short of the full immersion in the jhana practice. And then this is called it's called one of the liberations of the heart. Elsewhere, they talk about these liberations of the heart as being where one has, in realizing a state, that you've touched it with the body. So this is not an intellectual concept. Elsewhere, I may bring this up later on elsewhere, there is, I found one sutta, it's a very unusual sutta, where a monk talks about knowing of nibbana without being a fully enlightened arahant, because it's like he compares himself to somebody who, a person who goes and finds a well in the desert, which is full of cool but pure, refreshing water, and so they can see it, but they don't have a rope or a bucket, and so they're not able to get it, but still they can see it. And the commentators say that that's somebody who has really done a lot in developing wisdom, but they've not developed this liberation of the heart by being able to touch the realization with their body. What Sariputta is describing of being like the earth and having being completely free of ill will, even when faced with unpleasant things. That's the state of touching with the body. Then the second, suppose they were to wash both clean and unclean things in water, like feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. The water isn't horrified, repelled, and disgusted because of this. In the same way, I live with a heart like water, abundant, expansive, limitless, free from enmity or ill will. In a certain way, the water element is like the river. It has the quality of flowing. That's one of the aspects. And I think if a person meditates on the mountain, they may have experience a lot of stillness. And if they meditate on meditating like the water, they could experience the continuous flow of phenomena, the continuous flow of impermanence, just flowing on and on, like the way the river flows by. Throwing feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood in the river could cause the river to be dirty in a physical way. But that pollution can eventually be worked out and cleansed through the process of nature. But what he's talking about is not whether something is clean or dirty, but it's the attitude, it's the mental attitude. So water doesn't have that mental or emotional reactivity. I have to say this because people who are aware of what humans have done to the earth can find these teachings confusing because they feel that the earth is crying and asking for our actions to help. But actually, the earth is not able to cry. The river is not able to cry. It's not able to call out. And that's why humans have got a duty, if you have the ability to speak on behalf of the earth and speak on behalf of the river to protect. But the point here is that the water, nature, is like this great mystery, like the human tendency to this emotional reactivity, which is like so personal and so individual and really depends on a kind of like a separation of the consciousness into individuality, is causing this capacity for being horrified, repelled, disgusted. And then that individualism is like not existing in the great elements. Then the next is, suppose a fire was to burn both clean and unclean things like feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. The fire isn't horrified, repelled, and disgusted because of this. In the same way, I live with a heart like fire, abundant, expansive, limitless, free from enmity and ill will. And the characteristic of fire is consuming and destroying. There's the fire in the furnace, or the fire in the wildfire, which is obviously consuming and destroying, and even the fire in the compost pile, which is causing the things in the compost pile to break down, or the fire in the digestive system, which is causing the food that we eat to be breaking down. In Dhamma terms, the work we have to do is to take the defilements or the unskillful tendencies and actually to destroy them. Cut them off in such a way that they won't come back again. Dig them up by the root. Burn the seed. And then when that work is done, one is no longer involved in rejecting or pushing away. When the work is finished, nothing has to be selected or rejected anymore. But while we are along the way, this is very unnatural. And people who are not Buddhists, or people who haven't picked this up could really find it difficult, to imagine that a part of your innermost nature, something that's part of your character, part of your identity, that you actually are willing to destroy it like a fire, like letting the wisdom be like a fire that would really take something away, but it's a real point to contemplate. And then suppose the wind was to blow on both clean and unclean things like feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. The wind isn't horrified, repelled, and disgusted because of this. In the same way, I live with a heart like the wind, abundant, expansive, limitless, free from enmity and ill will. I was careful this morning to make a distinction, not using the air element or the wind element as my second simile for your meditation, but instead to take the space element. Because it says here that the wind element is able to touch the unpleasant things. So what is wind? Wind is energy, wind is motion, wind is action, and it's both the constant flow of the life energy that we have that's embodied with breathing in and breathing out, and it's also the voluntary or the chosen activities, like if I raise my arm or if I put my arm down, that's an activity that's called the wind element, the energy element in my body. Or if the body becomes aroused in any kind of way, that one's attention or one's interest is aroused in something, or if one's fear or repulsion is aroused, that action is the wind, and you can see how actually the life energy and as well our voluntary motions that we choose do touch all kinds of things, both the skillful things and the unskillful things. We can imagine all the people in rush hour coming and going, going to do this, going to do that, this endless energy coming, this and that, coming and going, coming and going. That's kind of like an aspect of the wind energy. But if you forget about the sort of the human embodiment of that, and just take the energetic aspect of nature, atomic energy, or the energy of the weather, that has no self-consciousness, and it doesn't have any aspect of being reactive, emotionally reactive. It just does what it does. Now, those metaphors, I think, are possibly familiar to some of us because they occur in the Sutta to Rahula in the Middle Length Discourse. It's a very famous sutta. But here's some more metaphors of Sariputta's about his equanimity, and I think these are so interesting. Suppose a rag was to wipe up both clean and unclean things, like feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. The rag isn't horrified, repelled, and disgusted because of this. In the same way, I live with a heart like a rag, abundant, expansive, limitless, free from enmity and ill will. So what is within your heart that's like a rag? It could be the part of you that you've neglected, or the part of you that you've rejected, the part of you that you don't respect. And having this boundless state, free of enmity towards the most humblest part of yourself. And then suppose an outcast boy or girl holding a pot and clad in rags were to enter a town or village. they'd enter with a humble mind. In the same way, I live with a heart like an outcast boy or girl, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. How meaningful it is. You know, the monastics in the Buddhist time were so venerated, so admired, so worshipped. And even in modern times, depending on the cultural situation or the attainments or achievements of a sangha of monastics, they could find themselves the subject of a lot of worldly adulation. And instead of picking up some kind of conceit as a result of that adulation, that they keep themselves at the most humblest and simplest possible level, being just like an outcast boy or girl. Persons who are outcast are frequently subjected to a lot of bullying and meanness and hatred. And it's possible for a person who's a victim of bullying to become bitter and resentful because of that. And if they pick that up, they're really on the path to endless round of suffering. But people who are bullied, who are victimized, sometimes are able to find out that developing boundless loving kindness, that it's actually possible to find the space where they don't have to pick up any of the meanness or cruelty that's been thrown at them. And it's actually for this reason that people who face a lot of hardships like that sometimes can obtain a lot of moral and spiritual maturity and have a kind of a moral and spiritual power because they faced these kind of difficulties and were able to discover the way to get beyond it so that they would not be touched by whatever kind of cruelty is thrown at them. And then Sariputta said, suppose there was a bull with his horns cut, gentle, well-tamed, and well-trained. He'd wander from street to street and square to square without hurting anyone with his feet or horns. In the same way, I live with a heart like a bull with horns cut, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. And so, whatever defensive weapons we have in our arsenal, if we relinquish those and don't pick them up again, then we can wander, having been unilaterally disarmed. Now, these next two are the last final two reflections that Sariputta gave are even more challenging. Suppose there was a woman or a man who was young, youthful, and fond of adornments, and had bathed their head. If a corpse of a snake or a dog or a human were hung around their neck, they'd be horrified, repelled, and disgusted. In the same way, I'm horrified, repelled, and disgusted by this rotten body. After going through so many different metaphors of not being horrified, repelled, and disgusted, finally, Sariputta is saying he is horrified to be stuck, still being alive and still occupying this living human body. How should we understand this? Well, in the simile of the snake, they speak about the snake who gives up the worn out skin. So when the snake is growing, the skin becomes too tight, and then he has a way of wriggling and wiggling and shucking off the dead skin, which is sort of like I guess you could say like an onion throwing off the peel, the part that outer layer. And it can happen sometimes that this dead, worn out skin is still like sticking to the tail of the snake, and then the snake shakes very vigorously and rubs against the tree or something like that to finally make it come off. So in this way, we have within our physical body, including the brain, the equipment for a lot of these defiled states. So we have the equipment for desire, we have the equipment for horror, we have the equipment for greed, we even have the equipment for delusion within the way in a normal human, the way the body and the brain is operating. Even if the mind has become otherwise, still the body and the brain can be like going on like that. And so I think it's in this way, not that Sariputta was saying he's become like a disordered and developed a kind of an opposite mental problem of hatred of the body. But instead, the way that the body, including the brain, and all of the aspect of the nervous system and all the related systems that are part of our life process, they keep operating in a way which is in tune with having that self-delusion. And when Sariputta has outgrown that and doesn't want that aspect anymore, doesn't want to pick it up. And then the last one is, suppose someone was to carry around a bowl of fat that was leaking and oozing from holes and cracks. In the same way, I carry around this body that's leaking and oozing from holes and cracks. It's said that the fully enlightened arahant who still has a remainder, the remainder is occupying a body which is alive and having this life process, and they will experience Vedana feeling, including painful bodily feelings. And so this is an aspect of equanimity that arahant must have in order to put up with going on with some more years of life, that they will exercise of patient endurance, patient forbearance, and they will tolerate all of the less pleasant aspects of the human body, the human life, including the mental experiences of Vedana, and be able to hold those painful things with an equanimous mind, which is not shaken. This is what people can do. We can cultivate many people who are maybe even a long way from enlightenment, or even understanding the aspiration for enlightenment, nevertheless are able to develop a wisdom just even by fully understanding the first noble truth, that when suffering happens, okay, this is suffering, and what I can do here is I can try to understand it. And in that process of shifting from just reacting to the to dukkha by trying to get rid of it, instead becoming interested, having like a patient, compassionate interest in the desire to investigate and to understand dukkha. But I think it's also very useful for those who are in the earlier stages of our practice to realize that this somewhat of a stoic attitude of being able to tolerate things that are not pleasant, even if all you can do is just put a 10-second gap between something unpleasant happened and when you start to blow up about it, put that gap in so you have enough time to look and see more clearly and to understand what's really happened, to bring the wisdom factor in. And then it could be that you would be able to dissolve the picking it up as an unpleasantness. So this is a reflection for you about the how you could be really equanimous in an unshakable way when you finally get home, when you finally reach the state that you're aspiring for. So this concludes the formal part of my talk. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.